Mic check. Hopefully. Bueller. Mic check. 1, 2. Yes. No. 1 second. Excellent. Mic check. 1, 2. Uh-oh. Mic check. Check, check, check. Yes, no, no. Oh, no. Hmm. Any better? No. That should be right. I'm just trying to think through the signal flow back there to try to help. Plugged in the mic level in. Just thought of something.
Everything they have. Hey, thanks for putting me on work. I was on the runway with the engine running. What time are you leaving? Like 5:30. The Galaxy. They were giving us a hard time. Stay the night. Stay away from here. So we were staying for a night. This place is a joke. We're
Mic check. Still. I don't know. I don't know how to help at this point. I've checked everything that I know to check. Sorry, Bree.
I mean, I don't know how much of it.
You're staying at a B&B.
He's
Staying at a B&B right up there.
yeah.
Trying to find a vegetable going to Friday. Going back to Nashville. I went like 24 hours. Like I haven't been home in a month.
You go back upstairs.
I'm gonna try to go back to back. I just wanted to go back. Because I mean, now my own man in Nashville is gonna feel a lot. I was sick of that actually so, but fortunately I fly back home and I don't have to. Well, I'm leaving like Friday night. Like 1 a.m. Which I'd rather do.
That's fine. It's not like the game.
Yeah. And I could still get there early enough to get to I just didn't know if I wanted to go on Friday and then like I bet we would turn around and Nebraska, but I don't know where.
They're giving us Nebraska.
How sick would it be? How sick would it be if we get to play Indiana?
I don't have anything to talk
They might win
You
Indiana.
know, that would be then Oregon could potentially have lost to us. And same with Indiana. That would be best case scenario. I haven't looked at any of I haven't looked at the other shoes.
It would come down to
Well, they have to win the committee soon. I think it's that. We have the same, we love that.
Yeah. All right, folks, thanks for being here. Tuesday. We were going to open up questions today with Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Coach, your red zone offense has been very efficient this year. I think you guys are first in college football in scoring touchdowns in the red zone. I know that was an area last year maybe you guys struggled. What has it been? Will and the RPO, Chip's influence, just what has really been the reason
I
there?
think the execution's been good. I think Will's ability to run and some of the throws we've made is definitely made a difference there. But it's going to be important this week. Is you got to score touchdowns in the red area. We got to stop them in the red area. It's something we typically work on Wednesday. But I think it's the execution, but it's the approach and scheme as well.
And Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, Big Ten teams are 1-8 this year when they've had to go across 2 time zones for a road trip. What do you view as the biggest challenges of a long road trip like this, and how do you guys overcome that?
Yeah, I don't really see it as much of a challenge that way. I think it's a 4.5-hour flight. It's a couple hours more than Nebraska, and we're going to stay on East Coast time, and I think we got a good plan. We're going to stay on our time schedule, and it, the way that, the time of the game and everything fits kind of how we practice. So, we're not going to look too much into it.
When it's something nobody on this team has really done before, is it something that you have to prepare them for at all?
I don't think so. Again, it's only a couple hours more than Nebraska. So that's kind of how we're looking at it, and not making it a bigger deal than it is.
Whitney Hardy, far left, WCMH.
Ryan, we talk about so many different positions on the defense, but one we never really have to talk about much is the cornerbacks. I mean, just how much of a luxury is it to have a guy on each side who can go one-on-one and shut guys down? Yeah,
they're going to get challenged this week in a lot of different areas, but those guys are a big part of the defense, and every little piece matters when you're on defense. But that's a big part of it, and they have a big challenge this week, and good to see Davison get his hands on one last week. That was big, and Denzel got one the week before. So we got to have a great Tuesday practice right here, and know that they're going to look to really challenge our guys on the outside.
Davison specifically, how have you seen him grow? And you mentioned the interception. What is that going to do for? He's very confident, but it makes a difference when you get your hands on the ball.
I think sometimes when you come into a season, you no matter what, you can say don't have expectations, but you do. And when you get that pick like that, it kind of allows you to maybe relax a little bit and not press. So he can just play his game now because he's doing great.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North, and the podcast.
Ryan, what do you see from Oregon's defensive front on film? They just seem like they're maybe the most athletic group you guys have seen so far this year.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very good front. Birch is, very, very good. He's very athletic, strong, good pass rusher, good against the run. Harmon, we know he's from Michigan State. He's playing very, very good football. I mean, they have some good guys up front, so it's going to be a great challenge for our offensive line and for everybody. I think each week, again, it's ramped up, so that's been good. But we're looking forward to the challenge.
Your offensive line, I think most coaches will probably just want to see week-to-week incremental improvement. It seems like you're getting that. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Just how do you feel like now that group's progressed through these first 5 games?
I think there's been improvement, but we're nowhere near where we need to be, or in a situation where we're evaluating their progress. Other than the fact that I think they are getting better every week, and again, it goes back to practice. It goes back to the work they put in the preparation, and it's week to week. You can, look great one week, but not on the next week. And I think that's the thing to me that, we talked to our team about now, and, G. Scott spoke to our team recently about it. I think it's exactly right. Like, every day can look the same, but then when you look back on it, it's not even close to being the same. And so that's what we have to do. We've got to make sure that we're getting better every day, because you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And, I think with the offensive line, that's important this week, is that we continue to get better. And the only way to do that is to have a great Tuesday. And so we'll get in here at 2:30, start with the team meeting, and going from there.
Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, what's the conversation, the communication between with you and Chip to Jim Knowles on what you're seeing with the defense, how you would attack it, where you might be seeing some areas of concern this week?
Yeah, we have staff meetings, and we'll go through different things. We try not to get too much into that, but every once in a while we'll get somebody's opinion from the other side of the ball. And so every once in a while I'll go down with the scouts and give them, what I think are some different things that they need to prepare for. But at the end of the day, Jim's the head coach of the defense, and he's going to, run the defense. But it's been good to get feedback from both sides of the ball in those staff meetings. But yeah, it's usually just kind of, 30,000 foot view, kind of conversations.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Obviously, big game for Will, and he's not new to this. He's played in some big games before, but maybe this is a weird way to ask this, but what lets you know that he's maybe ready for this moment?
Well, he came here for a reason. He came here to play in games like this, and he's played in games like this, but he's excited to do that, and his preparation's going to be the same. We always say that it's about us. Now, that being said, we got to be experts at our opponent and know our opponent cold, but it doesn't change our preparation. If our preparation has been, to our standard up to this point, we just need to continue to do what we've been doing. So he's been looking forward to this game. Obviously, we all have been. So when the schedule came out, and so he's going to have a great week of preparation. But there's a reason you come to Ohio State, and there's a reason he came, and for games like this.
Did you evaluate Dylan at all when you guys were searching around in the portal? What do you think of him as a football player? Dylan Gabriel?
I think he's a very good player. I think he's played a lot of football. He's experienced. He gets the ball out of his hand quickly. He's accurate. Very accomplished. He's his production speaks for itself, and his numbers overall, his body of work, and I think he's playing very well.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan Tabor played, I think, all but 3 or 4 snaps there at right guard. Did he do something in practice that made you guys think that he should be there for the full Iowa game? And then do you think that's something that you guys are going to keep doing moving forward?
Probably, but we'll see again. We'll keep evaluating on a week-to-week basis, but he is getting better. And we felt like he could handle those guys inside and gave us the best chance in that moment to win the game. So, we'll kind of, again, evaluate it this week. But if he continues to improve and continues to do what he's doing, then it'll look the same.
Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Ryan, you could have drawn any of these 4 teams out west this year. You got Oregon. It turns out this is a really big game this part of the year. What's that mean for your team, for the league, and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I think it's great because you get to control your own destiny because you're playing the best teams in the league on our schedule, and so that part's great. Every time you're playing one of these teams, you're fighting for an opportunity to go to Indianapolis, and that's important. So there's that part of it. And then there's obviously the playoff scenario. So a lot at stake this weekend, which is exactly the way we want it.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Right, both of these quarterbacks, Dylan and Will, are super seniors using that extra year of eligibility. Wondering with Will, where does that extra year show up at all when you watch him and evaluate him? Just what's the value of that extra experience?
It's probably in the preparation and then in game, having experience and not departing your preparation and what you've done to that point. Because I think it's easy when you're a young player, once you get into a game and you get into a high pressure situation, to all of a sudden abandon all your technique. You see that a lot with young players and sometimes young quarterbacks. And so both of those guys have played a lot of football and have the ability to identify what they saw on the sideline, communicate it, and then continue to make adjustments as the game goes on.
Was that something when you were evaluating your options at that position this offseason? Was that a trait or a value that something you saw?
Other than the fact that they had a bunch of snaps under their belt, I mean, it's kind of hard to evaluate something like that. So you're actually in it with them, but both very, very intelligent. And, the people, really what you do in that moment is you call people that worked with them. With Seth, Bill O'Brien had worked with them, and you call around and you ask people, hey, tell me about this player. What was that like? People who were in the building, Sam Petito was at Alabama. So you just kind of ask around because there's only so much you can tell off of film and meeting with somebody, but both were, very mature, and then played a lot of football and then came very highly recommended.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Brian, kind of off that, when you are evaluating Will, and when you get in the transfer portal, you see the big games, the Big 12 title game, the game against Texas last year. Is there anything you can see on film? Obviously, like you said, you need them in-house to see it firsthand, but anything you see on film that stands out just with him in big games that you think contributes that he?
Well, I think a big part is his legs, and having the ability to make a difference with his legs. And, you'll always, when you're starting, at the end of a season, you start backwards and kind of almost try to almost reverse engineer the whole roster. And it starts with that, is that, the ability to, use your legs is really, really important. because that becomes the X factor, and he can do that. And so it kind of goes from there. And we kind of made that decision and felt like that was important for us. And so then it kind of, went from there. And, all the other things are, for him, his size and his intelligence and his ability to throw the ball and, throw accurately in the red zone, and third down. Those are all really big traits that you need in big games. So I think, we're all still learning about Will because he's only been here for, 6 months or whatever it's been. But we're learning quickly as these games are coming and going.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Ryan, you have a veteran team this year. Does that change anything about the way you approach games like this, the way you prepare this week, the way you talk about it? Does that change at all based on the kind of team you have, or is it just business as usual?
I mean, I think you always, try to make sure you identify the things that, fit the team that you have for sure. But there's a lot of things that are consistent with every week. You all of a sudden you don't just change because, it's a quote unquote big game. They're all big. But you want to make sure that you're also, like you said, tailoring it to the guys that you have. And so, if we say it's about us all the time, then it's about us in the games like this, which it is. So we're going to continue with the same routine. Our guys like that routine. And it's our job as coaches to make sure we give them a clean plan that they can go play. They shouldn't be thinking on Saturday night.
Adam King, WBNS 10 TV.
Obviously, a couple Oregon ties on the staff. Chip coached there, but he also coached against them at UCLA, and then with Coach Laughlin. Have you leaned on them at all? Have you learned anything from them about the Ducks, and how much have they helped you guys get ready for this?
Yeah, they have good information. And when you're somewhere, you have a feel for the place, and so good information there. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the players on the field, and who's going to run the football and stop the run and take care of the ball.
Steve Hellwagon, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, look at their Boise game. I think they had a kick return and a punt return for touchdowns.
They did,
just how critical, as closely matched as your two teams are, that one play in special teams could really decide this. And you guys haven't had to cover a lot of kicks and punts, but maybe this week.
Yeah, every play is going to matter in a game like this, and both returners are dynamic. And I think that's the thing we talk about all the time is the issues are always there, and it can come down to one play. And we say that week in and week out here on Sunday meetings, and now it's for real. So, and you never know when that one play is going to come. But you're right. Every play is going to matter. Every inch is going to matter. In all three phases.
Front row left, Jake Trotter, ESPN.
Yeah, Ryan, your shared experiences with Chip, growing up same hometown, same high school, same college, and then your history together. How has that impacted the way you work together, relate together, and then trust one another?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest word is trust. Is that when you have trust, you get through a lot of wasted time, because you can be direct with somebody and know that you care about them, and no matter what is said, you can kind of put your arm around each other afterwards. I say that a lot because that's it. I think the other thing is having familiarity of just how each other think. You can get through a lot of conversation, revisiting some things you've done in the past. Things that have worked, things that haven't worked, things that you've tried together before, philosophically, all those things I think allow us to work efficiently.
How has he impacted you and your coaching career? You haven't been together all the time, but obviously we're together at UNH.
Yeah, probably the biggest influence in my life in football, just from when it started in my hometown of Manchester. He kind of was the first one to kind of really get into college coaching, and then recruited me to go to the University of New Hampshire. I kind of shared with him then that I wanted to be a coach, and then he kind of took me under his wing, and then I coached for him, and he helped me get some of the jobs that I got along the way. And I ended up going to Florida because of Dan Mullen, who's a Manchester guy, and then worked with Urban, and then that kind of played out from there. So it kind of gave me my start, and then I worked with him in the NFL for 2 years. So I've been very fortunate to be around great coaches and great mentors, and he was obviously a big part of it.
Joe Nugent, WCMA.
With the Ducks leading the country in completion percentage, what makes them so dangerous in that area?
Well, they get the ball out quick, and Gabriel's very accurate, and they have really good playmakers out in space, and they make you defend the field, from sideline to sideline, and then they take their shots. So they play very, very fast, and so you got to be on your game. And And he's a great operator, and he's very talented.
Third row right, Stefan Kreisnick, Cleveland.com.
Following up on Chip there a little bit, you're still pretty young in your coaching career when he got going at Oregon. How much did you kind of watch those games and try to take things from his offense? Because they put up really impressive numbers while he was there.
Yeah, it was a different place. Boston College, just a different grouping of people, and we had Matt Ryan at the time, and it's pretty unique. I think we were top 3 and 4 in the country at Boston College at the time, and so was he. And so that 07, 08 year, runs, both very different offenses, but certainly watched it all just like everybody else did. He's just kind of revolutionizing, football at the time.
Don Ferry, WBNS 10 TV.
Coach, I'm sure didn't feel comfortable Saturday with some of the adversity you faced, but looking back now, are you happy your team faced that adversity and the way they handled it?
Yeah, if we're going to turn the ball over, then you're going to be in a game like that at halftime, and so you're either remembering or you're learning, and we better learn from that. So that was important. But I felt like going into halftime, we had moved the ball well. I think we had just about 200 yards of offense, and we had played very good defense, so we were good that way. But when you turn the ball over and don't convert on a 4th down, there's 3 drives right there, and you're not going to get many at bats, against an Iowa team. So yeah, you got to learn from that experience. We talked about that on Sunday, but great to see us come out and play that way in the second half, which is, encouraging coming out at halftime. There was a lot of, like you said, a lot of positivity, knowing that we could play that way in the second half, despite only being up 7-0.
Feel like they're battle tested now? I mean, going into this thing.
Well, we do have a bunch of guys who have played a bunch of football, so that is good, and we know what the challenge was there. But this is a different challenge on the road against a great opponent, and so we're going to go swing as hard as we can, and excited about this. So everybody is, and so fired up to get them back in here in a couple hours.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
3 years ago when you played them, it was obviously kind of a rude awakening for your defense. You made changes after that. All that process ended up with getting Jim Knowles. When you look back at that game, how much of a foundation-changing game did that turn out to be?
That was CJ's really second start maybe, and boy, he played his tail off that game, and we just didn't play very good on defense and didn't run the ball and convert on 4th downs, and so that's how you lose games, and so we had to do a better job running the ball and playing defense, and like you said, coming out of games like that, you learn a lot about yourself, and I knew we had something special coming out of that game with CJ. I could see it, and but I knew there were other areas that needed to get fixed, and we worked hard to try to get them addressed.
How different? I mean, it's an obvious question, but how different is this defense now compared to that one?
Yeah, I would say it's very different. Different scheme, different players. Yeah.
Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Ryan, Oregon's generated more pressure than any opponent you faced so far this season. Just what's kind of, from the small sample size in game, what's your sense of Will under pressure so far this season? I'm sure you see it a lot in practice too. Where does he need to be better in that area?
I mean, it's just everything gets ramped up, and we got to make sure that we're doing a great job in protection, knowing that we have a really good front we're going against, and that we're doing a great job of getting open. I mean, they're gonna challenge us in coverage, and we got to create separation, and so everything's a part of that, and the quarterback's a big part of it as well, for sure. The ball's got to come out on time. But, it's not easy, but it's as simple as, having really good protection, spacing it out and getting out on time against zone and winning against man-to-man.
That with the experience your offensive line has now with the silent count, playing 6 road games last year, how much does that factor into a game like this?
Yeah, it's important to handle the environment, and that's a big part of it. Anytime you go on the road, you got to handle that, and we faced it a little bit at Michigan State, and so we're working on it hard, and we'll work on it hard again this week.
Austin Ward, the podcast.
Ryan, what did you think of Ty Lee in his return?
Solid, just getting his hands on people, knocking people back. I thought he and Ty were really good in the game, and along with a few other guys too. But yeah, it was good to get him back inside, and obviously you could feel his presence in there.
I know that you don't want to ask him or anybody to play every snap. When you go to the Rushman package and Larry's thinking about that, from the outside it looks like he's so dynamic and can collapse the pocket that maybe Tyleek could stay in there for that. Are there discussions about leaving him in some of those situations?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, it kind of almost becomes a snap count issue. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean he can rush the passer with as good as anybody in the country on the inside.
Tim May, Letterman Row.
Thanks, Jerry. Just a housekeeping question real quick. Did Chip ever try to hire you before y'all hooked up with the Eagles?
Yeah, for sure. We had talked about different opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember? I mean, did he try to get you to go to Oregon?
Yeah, we definitely had conversations back then. It wasn't a great time for me, but yeah. I just had RJ, and it was early in my career. I didn't want to move across the country, but yeah, we had discussions along the way.
And then after that, you went like that. Right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. But has Quinshawn, have you got what you thought you'd get out of Quinshawn and Travion to this point from the standpoint, Travion healthy now, the way he looks? Quinshawn, I just want your reaction to the way he runs. Is he even more violent, more, headstrong, whatever the word is you want to call it, the way he runs? I mean, the power he brings, et cetera. What's been your impression of that group?
Yeah, everything you just said. Yeah, everything you just said. And I think the only way that you can do that is when you have two guys who are team players who understand, what it means to win as a team. And so we're going to need them both this weekend. And they're both running really hard. And yeah, it's been fun to watch both of those guys improve this year. I think Travion's running really well. I think Quinshawn is exactly what you just said. He runs really hard and violent. He wants the ball, and so does Trey. But they've been great, and we're going to need them this week. Got to take care of the football and run downhill.
Do you feel like I've done a good job of not having one package for one and one for the other? You understand what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, we did.
I'm talking about not doing. You know what I'm talking. Chip, I asked Chip about that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, they both can do. They both can. They're 3 down backs, so they can protect. They can run routes, and they can run. All the different schemes that we run. Yeah.
Andy Anders, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, you touched on it some already, but just the challenge this Oregon offense presents when you have 3 receivers the caliber they have and a tight end as good as they have, spacing the field.
Yeah, athletes all over the place, and running backs very good, and so yeah, I mean it's the same thing we're looking for on offense. Is you try to have enough weapons out there that you can't just narrow down on one thing. So yeah, I mean they're going to put you in space and try to spread you out, and so you got to win your one-on-one battles.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you were talking about Oregon's offense just now. I think a lot of people still think of it similarly to when Chip was there, but how does Dan Lanning put his impact, especially on the defensive side? What do you see that makes this a Dan Lanning program?
Yeah, I just think over time, it's changed a lot from when Chip was there, and Dan's got his own style and his own scheme on both sides of the ball, and different coordinators, but from back when Chip was there, and even before that to where they are now, again, one of the best teams in one of the best programs in the country, and they do a great job, and and they play hard.
Does that defense remind you of the Georgia defense you guys saw a few years ago?
I think there's a lot of differences there. I know that you just kind of watch it and you say, well, it's the same tree and everything, but there's some similarities, but there's a lot of differences there as well, and because you try to do everything you can to fit your scheme to what your players can do well, and it's different players, but a lot there's certainly things in common.
And final questions, Tim Hall, 97.1 The Fan.
Hey, Ryan, I'm wondering, last year was talked about the rules changes with the clocks not stopping after a first down throughout the entirety of the game. This year, the 2-minute warning has had a pretty good impact. I'm just wondering if you like that being in college football, if that helps you manage your timeouts a little bit differently, especially in the second half.
Yeah, it's different because you do have to manage it different. But and I think the idea was that, less TV timeouts. I think we were close to either 5 or 6 TV timeouts in the second quarter of the game the other day. So it's just something you got to handle and deal with. And so you got to keep the guys moving. And, that is what it is. In terms of the rule changes with the clock running, I kind of found out today that I think we're averaging 67 plays a game, which is just about 20 some odd plays less than we would have like in 17 or 18. So it is very, very different. That's a lot of football, but that is the game. That's how the game's being played now. So, but again, the game of football hasn't changed. It's just the number of plays and how it's how it's run.
World, do you like to keep all your timeouts in the second half, especially when you're in a huge game like this one coming up?
Well, you want to use them when they both they best maximize your opportunity to win the game. You certainly don't want to use them to for organization or something like that. You want to use them to help you schematically or in terms of you working the clock. So, but there's a lot that comes into that. There's a lot of work we do behind the scenes to make sure we're prepared to do that. And you can see kind of how we did it at the end of the first half the other day. And that's all thought out ahead of time to make sure that we're all on the same page on how we're attacking that.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Columbus Dispatch.
Chip, I know you've been back to Oregon 3 times at least, but still, how special is it for you? I mean, what are your kind of strongest memories of coaching there and building that program?
Yeah, well, I didn't build the program. Rich Books and Mike Bellotti built the program. I just kind of jumped in after Mike, but it's a special place, and I think it's great for our players. A chance for them to play in one of the special places in college football. They came out here a couple years ago and got to play in the shoe. We get to go play in Autzen Stadium, and it's Autzen Stadium at that time of day. It's truly special. So I think our guys are excited. They're a really good team, and I think that'll get your attention right away when you look at the film. And then I have, family there. I have a brother-in-law and a sister-in-law and 3 nephews. So I'll get a chance to see them. And then some of the coaches that I've coached with, Nick Aliotti, John Neal, Don Pelham, Steve Greatwood, a couple guys we've text messaged. So besides family and those coaches that I worked with that I'll get a chance to see very quickly, it's about the game, and I'm fired up for our players because it is a really special place to play.
About their defense, what stands out? Obviously, it's a good defense. What stands out the most?
It is. I think the way Jordan Birch is playing right now up front. They've got a lot of seniors on their defense. I think there's 9 of them in that starting lineup. Everybody in the back end, the 2 linebackers, the 1 linebacker, Bassa seems like he's been there for a long time. And then Betcher, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, number 28, who's a really good player, baseball player, has played really, really well. It kind of seems like he's the heart and soul of that defense. And then they have veterans in the secondary. I know they're transfer kids, but they're all seniors that have played a lot of football. So I think they're really gelling together as a group. They're going to present a lot of different looks. So we've got to be ready for everything they can throw at you, and they're going to throw a lot of things at you. So, that's the challenge when you're going to play a team like this. So you get excited about it.
Third row left, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
What do you attribute all the red zone success to that you guys have had? What types of things have made that work well for you guys?
I think our players are just executing, and I would attribute it to our players. I think they really grasp the plan each week, and the plan is different because we play different people on a weekly basis. But they've really executed, and it starts in our practice sessions. I think they've been really sharp. This group really practices really, really well. So kind of what we've done in practice on Wednesdays and Thursdays, which is our red zone days, they've gone out and executed at a really high level. I thought our receivers have caught the ball really well down there, and I thought Will's located the ball down there when we've had to throw it. But you have to run the ball in there, and I think the way our offensive line's playing, our tight ends are playing, and we get into some of those bigger sets, have provided us, the ability to either run it in or throw it in right now.
Coaches often get a lot of credit for the play calling or not down in that area. So you're saying it's really the players more?
Yeah, it's always the players. They have to execute. I mean, you can call a play, but they still have to go out and execute that play. And I think that's what we got. We got a bunch of guys that spend a lot of time. This group works extremely hard at the game, and they take everything we do. They're really serious about it. So when you watch our red zone practices on Wednesday and Thursday, that's really the reason we're successful on Saturdays, is because of how they train and how they prepare on Wednesdays and Thursdays for those scenarios that will come up in a game.
Front row left, Jake Trotter, ESPN.
Yeah, Chip, your shared experiences with Ryan growing up in the same hometown, same high school, same college, and then coaching together, you coaching him. How has that impacted the way you guys work together now, you relate together now, and trust each other?
Yeah, I just think we've been around each other for so long that we share a lot of the same views of how the game is supposed to look. So it's when he has an idea, it's not something that you're like, wow, where did that come from? You have an understanding because we spent time together coaching together, and I coached him, but then I also got to coach with him. So, I think we shared experience. Sometimes he'll talk about a route that we may have run when we were together in the NFL. Remember when we played the Cowboys and we did it this way? I'm like, oh yeah, let's get that tape out. Let's take a look at that. So, I think our familiarity in understanding how we see the game, when we see the game similar, that I think that makes it so much easier.
What's it been like now that you had a few months coaching here under him? What's it been like for you back together, Brian?
It's been great. I mean, it's all about what we really care about. It's about football, and he gets pulled out of some meetings sometimes, and obviously that's what happens to a head coach. There are other things on his plate besides just the offense, and the fact that I can stay in there with Brian Hartline and Justin Fry and Carlos Lachlan and Keenan Bailey. We'll continue to grind on what we got to do, and then when he comes back in, we kind of present what we came up with, and most of the time we're always on the same page. Or it's, hey, why don't you look at it a little bit like this, and then they can kind of give you a new idea, and you can get a little bit more traction doing it that way. But I think we understand both of our backgrounds, so I think that's what makes it so easy for us to have conversations about it.
Wide left, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Hey, Chip, you mentioned Jordan Birch. From what you've seen, what makes him so special?
Yeah, I think his athletic ability for such a big player, he's listed at 6'5", 290, but he plays defensive end. Most guys that big are the interior defensive linemen, so he's a really athletic guy. And, he had a huge game against Michigan State last Friday night, and really kind of showed up. I think he's really starting to embrace that role that Tosh and Dan have put him in. And, you got to know where he is on every play, but he's one of those guys that can disrupt the football game.
The guys on this team, I mean, they play in a huge stadium, Cashew almost every week,
Mhm.
the big house down in Happy Valley. But what advice would you give them about playing in Austin? What makes you say it's special? Going in there as the opponent, what advice will you give them?
Yeah, I think it's like any advice you give anybody is that it's really not about the crowd. It's about what do we do and how do we prepare. I think everywhere you go in this league, it's going to be loud. That's just the nature of it. The stadiums in the Midwest are gigantic. And I think this group has had a lot of experience playing in big stadiums. So, I think no matter where we were going, whether it was to Autzen or to the big house or up to Camp Randall or any place like that in between, is you really don't concentrate on the stadium. You're really concentrating on the opponent, and you just turn the tape on and that will have your attention. It's about the Ohio State football players versus the Oregon football players. And it's not about the environment that you're playing in. It's about the game itself. So.
Front row right, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Oh, thanks, Jerry.
Is it over? Because this is usually the last question. All right, there we go.
I'm gonna try to just ask one.
Just one.
Yeah.
No follow-ups.
I don't want to hog it. What have you learned about Quinshon Judkins? Obviously, Trayvon was a returning player. You weren't here last year either, but both of those guys, but especially Quinshon, that maybe you didn't know about him from the violent way he runs the football, et cetera. What has really gotten you going about watching Quinshon play?
Yeah,
He had a game the other day that wasn't that well blocked. It was still a 12-yard game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I had just seen highlights because obviously, weren't in the same league and didn't play them. So, I'd see highlights on a Saturday and knew he was really talented, knew he had run for a lot of yards there. Came from a really well-coached scheme. Lane does a great job and did a great job with him. But, I think seeing his physicality, because normally, we're not tackling and taking guys down in practice. So, we're usually just studying the running back up, and the running back has to give a little bit because he's not trying to run over a defensive player because the defensive player is not trying to tackle him. So, when you really see him live in games and see here comes an unblocked guy, I look back to the Marshall game where the linebacker was unblocked and he just kind of tossed him to the ground. I think it's his physicality running with the football. Not that I didn't think he had it. It's just I'd never seen him in those situations before. So he's got really good vision and he's got great feet for a big player. He's 220 pounds. And, I had noticed that right at the beginning, because when we're doing run throughs and things like that, you watch him navigate and make a decision on where he's going through a hole. And then when he sticks his foot in the ground, he takes off. But then I think when you see him in games, like you guys have seen him in games, and for us, it's really the first 5 times I've seen him have been the same 5 times you guys have seen him in a game. And it's his physicality when he has the ball in his hands that I think kind of can separate him from some other backs.
Austin Ward, podcast.
Chip, you talked about the execution in the red zone situations. What did you see on the 4th down attempt? And I don't know what the process was to go empty in that situation. You don't get a mulligan in those situations, I guess. But what happened on that play, and would that impact anything moving forward for you?
No, I think every game is different. So how people defend certain things, it's, sometimes you got to give credit to them. I think they did a decent job with penetration, and kind of reestablishing the line of scrimmage there a little bit. So we couldn't stay on track in terms of the path that we wanted to start the quarterback on. And really it was just a little bit of knockback that affected us on that. But when it's 4th and 2, a little bit of knockback can affect you.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
I have a technical question, I guess. I feel like a lot of times when you see quarterbacks in the pistol, they just sort of spin and hand the ball to the running back. And you guys were having Will kind of step back, like kind of two-handed. What does changing the footwork out of that look provide you guys that sort of just like spinning around and handing it off wouldn't give you?
Yeah, well, we're not the first to do that. So a lot of, I know.
I haven't seen it here before.
Let's say that again.
I haven't seen it here before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done it. We've done it everywhere I've been. I've done it, we did it a lot, especially in the NFL when we had Colin Kaepernick, because it's really the pistol offense came from Coach Alt at Nevada when Colin played there. So, it's a lot of the things that I learned from Coach Alt at Nevada a long time ago about how to do it. So, and then ever since we adapted that. So I've been doing that at every place I've been for about the last 10 or 12 years. So it's, the back is in the dot, so he's coming downhill. And I think some running backs like that a little bit better. Some running backs like being on the side a little bit better. So it's just, do you want asparagus or do you want Brussels sprouts? It's just ordering a side order with your meal. It's not the meal. It's just kind of the side order. So, and then make sure you get enough for everybody too. So for the table, so not just for yourself.
4th row right, Andrew Gillis, Cleveland.com.
Yeah, Chip, Oregon's recruiting classes these last couple of years have been pretty good. What did you learn about recruiting at Oregon that is maybe different from recruiting at UCLA, from recruiting at Ohio State? Like, what's different about trying to get kids to go to Pacific Northwest?
Well, I think it's a different era now. So I don't think you can compare when I was there in 2012, recruiting in 2012 and 2024. You might as well have been in a horse and buggy in 2012, the way the rules have changed. So I think it's a totally different game now, and how people recruit and what incentives people get to go to school. So I don't even know if that's applicable.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Chip, you faced Dan once as him at Oregon, you at UCLA. You guys had almost 450 yards. What did you like what you guys did against Dan, and what did you learn from facing Dan that you could kind of draw for this matchup against him again?
Well, I can start with what I didn't like is that we were behind. So we threw the ball a lot more in that game because we were behind. And that's, sometimes I think if you just look at the statistics of a game and say, hey, you guys had X amount of offense. Well, are they playing the same defense that they would play if it was a little bit closer score? And I don't know if that's the case when you go back and look at that game. We faced a lot of soft zones in the second half because we were down. So we had to throw the ball to try to get within a score or two, when we kind of made it a little bit closer at the end. So, they're really well coached. He comes from a really good coaching tree, starting with Coach Saban and Kirby at both Alabama and Georgia. So, they're going to be sound. They're going to move their front. They play very, very close in coverage. They're very sticky in the coverage in terms of challenging your receivers. And there's a lot on the plates of the linebackers, but I think their linebackers are really well coached. I think they handle it really well.
Right next door, Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Chip, how did your time at Oregon maybe influence some of your creativity, whether offensively, running a program, anything like that?
Well, I had a chance to work for a great head coach in Mike Bellotti when I was there for 2 years as an assistant. But more important than that, I think Mike's staff was together, a lot of those guys, for 20 plus years, which was even a rarity back then. Gary Campbell, when Gary retired at running back coach, he had been there for 30 some odd years. Nick Aliotti was 20 plus years. Steve Greatwood was 20 plus years. John Neal, 15 years. Tom Osborne, 15 years. Don Pelham, 20 plus years. So I came in and I was the youngest guy there and the least amount of time on staff, but there was such a wealth of knowledge from that coaching staff that you couldn't help but learn from those guys. And it was, and they welcomed me with open arms. So it was just a really cool experience for me to spend 2 years as an assistant before I became a head coach. And then when I became a head coach, those guys were all there with me. So it was like I had 5 or 6 other head coaches with me that kind of shepherded me along the way as we kept going. But the big thing there is that we had great players, you know, and the success we had when I was there was a direct correlation to how good our players were. Is, you know, you show me a coach with a good record, I'll show you guys got a bunch of talented football players on the team, and that's what we had. So, but I learned a ton, not only from the coaches there, but from the players I had an opportunity to coach.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS 10 TV.
You've had a little bit of time at Ohio State now. It just, I don't, what's the differences between the university? I mean, you were at Oregon for a long time. When you think of Ohio State versus when you think of Oregon, what kind of goes through your mind?
Yeah, nothing goes through my mind. And I don't mean it that way because I never think of that. Like, I learned a long time ago, I think it was Thomas Jefferson, that comparison is the thief of joy. And I don't compare my experience at one school to my experience at another school because, number one, I don't have time to do that. But number two, maybe when I retire, I can sit back and kind of think about it. But I don't really think about it. I just think of it. This game has given me so much, and it's been so special that I've had an opportunity. You know, I got a chance to coach at Oregon. Like, I would have never dreamed of that as a little kid. I got a chance to coach at the Ohio State. Like, wow. I mean, that's pretty special. So I think both of them are different. I think every experience is different just because all universities and the people that you deal with are different. But both places are really special to me now.
Are you excited to go back there?
I am. I love my time there. I mean, it was, and I met so many great people, you know, besides the coaches and the players that I got a chance to coach, the Phil and Penny Knights and the Pat Kilkennys and Stephanie Kilkennys and Ed Miletus and so many people that care very deeply about that university. That's the one thing I can tell you about being there is the passion that those guys have for the University of Oregon is second to none. Just like the people here, their passion for this place is second to none. So I think there aren't many people that got a chance to coach at both places, and I just feel very fortunate that I could. So.
Stefan Kreisnik, Cleveland.com.
Ryan was talking about kind of the influence you had in his coaching career, helping him get jobs early on, and even, you know, talking about potentially coming to Oregon when he was younger in his coaching career. I guess, what did you see from him, you know, early in his coaching career that made you think that, you know, he had a chance to be a pretty good coach after a pretty good playing career?
I think he's always had a really keen athletic mind. You know, he could process things really fast. You know, he was the catcher on the baseball team, the point guard on the basketball team, the quarterback of the football team. You know, always the guy that had to make decisions while he was a player. So I thought he naturally would transition into being a very good coach. And then just getting a chance to observe him early in his career, you knew, you know, that guy has it. You know, and I think I knew he had a bright future, and his success wasn't a surprise. But his success wasn't a surprise to anybody that's ever been around him for a while, just because you can tell how he's wired. Like, he's wired to be successful in what he's doing right now. You know, I think it's to some people, I don't know, maybe they don't know him as well as we do, but it's not a surprise to us because I think we knew he was going to be successful from a really, really young age.
You talked about Dan Mullen helping him on early too. How did you kind of first get to know Dan, and had you talked to him when Ryan was kind of looking for GA job?
We're all from the same hometown, so I think we all grew up within a mile of each other. So it's I helped Danny get his first job. Sean McDonald, who was a teacher at our hometown, that went on to coach college and was a head coach at New Hampshire and coached both myself and Ryan, kind of got me involved. I got Danny involved. Danny, Ryan. When Ryan got to Florida, it's because I called Danny because Danny was at Florida at the time and said he was at Boston College and the job came open. So I recommended him to Danny, and it kind of went from there. But I think it's about who you know sometimes more than what you know. And I think all Ryan ever needed to do was get in front of some people. So if we could open a door to get him in front of people, we didn't get him any jobs. He got the jobs himself, but it was just an opportunity. After people met him, they were like, yeah, you know, I wouldn't have recommended him if I didn't think he could do a really good job at it. And I knew he would be successful.
Got time for just a couple more. Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Chip, with Will having an extra year of experience due to the COVID year at all, how does that affect somebody who's just 23 years old playing in college? Do you see that as having any sort of effect for him? Your experience?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think the COVID year gave anybody any experience. I don't know how your experience during COVID was, but I don't look back on that and thinking, wow, because it was just a different time. You know, I thought about that because someone asked me about going to Oregon. We went up there during COVID and there were no fans in the stand. It was kind of eerie, to be honest with you. I think that whole season for some people, and I've never had a chance to really visit with Will and talk to him about his COVID experience and what it was like where we're at K-State about that. So I couldn't answer that part of it.
More so just getting like the extra time, like. 'Cause
No, I think that's a really good point. I think the time is in there's a lot of guys that got that everybody got that extra year if they chose to take it. So I think that's benefited. There are some kids when you turn on the game, they're like 7th-year players. Cam Rising, who I love, who's an unbelievable competitor at Utah, is, he's in year 7, I think, at Utah. And I think there's a lot to say to that because experience, you can't make that up. That's something that has to be earned over time. And all those guys that got that extra year, I think that part of it benefited him. But I couldn't just talk to what his COVID, because I don't know if he played. Did he play during the COVID year at K-State? Did he? Okay.
When you went there in 2020, did they play crowd noise at Austin?
Yeah, they did that all throughout the Pac-12 at the time, but it was like the same crowd noise wherever you went. So if you went when we were at Colorado, it was just. And I don't know what it was like. On the West Coast, it was a lot different during COVID. So we had no fans, nothing in any of our venues. And it was just, we played a game on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m. against Cal because our game at Utah got canceled the day before. And it was because they didn't have enough players. And then Cal's game got canceled against Arizona State. So they said, why don't you guys play each other? And it's like, go meet in a park and let's go play. So it was just different.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Fun way to schedule, prepare for a game.
College football playoff.
I know he's obviously a lot older now. His demeanor, everything has changed. But do you remember the first big game you guys played with Ryan Day as your starting quarterback, and what maybe his demeanor was like heading into that game?
Yeah, I think it was very similar. So he started, right at the beginning. I think we opened up against Rhode Island, and he played really well in that opening game. But he's the same as he is now. He was very well prepared. He knew what he was facing and knew who he was facing and studied it. Any advantage he could get from his preparation, he would take advantage of. And then he was just always just so competitive in every situation that, the great thing about him is you never had to motivate him. You didn't have to say, hey, you got to get up. It's a Tuesday practice. And this is who we had. He was already like that, because he's such an intrinsically motivated person that, those are the guys that you love coaching because they have to spend a lot of time on things that aren't X and O's because he's already dialed in that way.
How much of that actually comes with experience versus a guy, just as you're explaining with Ryan, that guy's just kind of built for a moment, regardless of how much experience he does or doesn't have?
I think the experience helps you, but I do think there are some people that are built for the moment, and I've always felt that he was one of those guys.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Chip, you talked about the Oregon defense, or the Dan Lanning defense. What makes a Dan Lanning defense, and specifically the front that you talked about in the movement?
Yeah.
What are the keys that
I only faced him one other time, so I haven't studied Dan to be able to say this is his hallmark traits of this. And then it was 2 years ago because we didn't play him in 23, so I only played him in 22, and that was the first time we faced him. So, but I think there's movement involved in the front. They move in and out of 3 down and 4 down. They can blitz you internally. They can blitz you from the edges. And I think they're always seem to like they're close in coverage. Like there's not, you don't turn the tape on and see a lot of guys running free. I think they do a really good job of mixing their coverages with their fronts. And it can present some problems to you if you're not prepared for it. So, that's the challenge for us this week is that it's a really well coordinated defense, both on the front end and on the back end.
And last question, deep left, Tim Hall.
I thought you were going Tim May.
Chip, how great was it to see Will and Emeka hook up so many times? And as a coach, do you get more of a kick out of, especially the second touchdown, when it is just a perfect throw and a perfect catch in the corner of the end zone? Do you get a little more? Do you get a bit more of a kick out of that than seeing just a perfect play open up where somebody's wide open running all the way down the field?
No, I think as a coach, when guys make plays, and I think to your point, you're right. When there's a guy running open down the middle of the field and you throw it to him and he catches it, it's, you don't get as excited as you do when it's a throw like the one Will had to Mech, to my left as I was looking out of the box. I thought that was had to put it in one spot and put it in that one spot, and Mech had made that catch. But I'll be honest, just a fan in you, when JJ makes those catches. Yeah, that's a little different. You'd like to take credit that like we do drills so that he can do that stuff. And Brian does, I'll give Brian credit. They do that. But, sometimes like those 2 catches at Michigan State and the one he had the other day are the ones that kind of make you go, wow, up top. Those are when I see someone do something spectacular like that probably not many other people can do. That kind of catches your eye also. But I think the plays that are executed like you mentioned, where it has to be a perfectly thrown ball and it can only be put in one spot, and that one spot's a difficult place to catch it. The way Mech did it's a credit to those guys. But I think it's what you see them do, as I alluded to earlier, on Wednesdays and Thursdays. In our red zone periods is, that was something that we really worked hard on in our red zone period, and they went out and executed it.
Coach, thank you very much for your time.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach. Hey, folks, when we're done with Will Howard, I need you to haul on out of here so we can get this set up. Mike's got responsibilities. I've got some responsibilities. So Mike's going to handle you guys through Will, but hop back out on the indoor as soon as you're done, or the trophy lobby. See everyone tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, guys.
You guys miss me? Back by popular demand, Will Howard. Start in the front.
I'm back.
Hey, Will, can you just describe your comfort level running the RPO? You seem very comfortable in that. Is that something that you had to build on in your career, or have you always kind of been comfortable in that?
Yeah, it's definitely something I've had to build on. If you watch me as a freshman, even me going back, like I just wasn't very comfortable with it. Just the more that I've, kind of grown and gotten more experience in it, just feeling, demeanors of guys, is that guy triggering and coming into the box? Do I need to pull it and throw it off of him? Like, I've just seen more and more pictures, and doing it more helps. And I think we practiced it a ton this offseason with Coach Kelly, and he puts a big emphasis on it. And I think it just helps our offense, and then the better I can be with it, and the more we rep it, and the better I can be with my decisions, the more we can stay on schedule.
Well, when you made the decision to come here to Ohio State, how much did the opportunity to play in a top 3 showdown like this factor into your decision?
Oh, absolutely. When you come to a place like Ohio State, you want to play on the biggest stage. College game day, all the hype, 2 versus 3 matchup. Like, this is what you sign up for, and this is what I was looking forward to. And it's a challenge, man. It's fun. This is what college football is all about. This is what you dream about as a kid, man. Like, just being on this stage, playing in front of a ton of people, and a ton of people watching on TV. Like, it's a dream, man, and it's definitely a big reason why I came here.
How do you, as a quarterback, prepare yourself to play in a challenging road environment like this?
It's hard. I don't want to say there's one way to, kind of go about it. For me, it's just, preparing like I always do, and trying to, even maybe heighten, how can I be better with my preparation this week? How can I, work harder? How can I, be the first one in, last one out every single day? Like, maybe there's something extra I can do this week. It's a big game, and, you want to say that you don't want to treat any game more than another, but we know how big this one is, and we know it's a big matchup, and we're going to have to be on our stuff. So going into the game, man, just being poised, being confident, and, you just want to, stay neutral, stay level-headed, and be as prepared as you possibly can going into the game.
Well, Coach Day was talking about your running in a big game like this and equating numbers, and you've obviously sort of ramped that up each week. Just how comfortable in this offense do you feel doing that as you head into this kind of game?
Yeah, very. Everything's on the docket, and we've definitely ramped it up as we've gone. And I think the design quarterback run stuff is definitely going to be more of an emphasis going forward. And I think that it adds an element to our offense. And anytime that you can add something that they have to be worried about, or something extra that that can present an issue to a defense, like, we're going to take every advantage we can get. And I think the quarterback run stuff has been good, and I think we have a lot more up our sleeve, and I'm excited to get it out on the field, and I love doing it. I think it's fun. I think getting my pads downhill and popping people, like, I think it makes you feel more into the game, and I like to, that first hit, kind of warms you up, and it gets you going, man. And it makes you
makes you a little more juiced, and it makes it more fun.
What stands out to you the most about Oregon's defense?
I think they have a solid front. I think their front is they got some dudes. I think number one's a really good player. In the back end, my boy Kobe from Kansas State. He's a good buddy of mine, man. So I'm excited to play against him. They got there's some talented transfers back there, and I think the thing about them is they're so multiple. They can do a lot of different things. They got a lot of good players. They want to play physical. There's a lot of different things about them that present challenges for us. But I think overall, I feel good about just initially watching them, and I think there's some things that we can do that will present issues for them. I think they do have a lot of transfers in, so I know that this is their first year in the system together, and I know that factors into it a little bit. And so I think there's some different ways we can attack them, but we got a challenge, and we know that, and we're gonna have to be on our stuff, and they're a good team, so we respect them, but we're ready.
Well, you played in big games. It's a Big 12 title game, the big game in Texas last year. How do those games? What do you learn from those games that prepared you for big moments like this? Like you said, your preparation is one thing, but what about the atmosphere, the week leading up to it? Can you take away from those moments?
That's a really good question. I think it's hard to circle on one thing, that you want to focus on in these big games and you want to take away from these big games. But from my experience in playing in them, the biggest thing is staying neutral and not getting too high and getting too low, because we know the emotions are going to be running rampant in this game. We know the implications of this game. We know it's a big one. But at the end of the day, you got to stay neutral, and you can't get too high. You can't get too low. You can't let things that happen affect you. I played it. I'd say one of our biggest games last year was at Texas, and we were down 27-7 in the fourth, and we ended up tying it and going to overtime. Like, I've learned, you just can never say die, and you can never, and you can never be up by too much either. It goes both ways. And you have to understand that the situations really matter, and that one play can make the difference in a game, and every single play really matters. And, in a matchup game like this, we're really focused on that, and want to make sure that, we take every opportunity we get to capitalize on opportunities.
It's been kind of a tiered schedule for you to kind of ease into this. Now it obviously goes to a whole different level. Do you think that's been helpful to you? Do you feel like it's gotten you ready for what's to come on Saturday?
Yeah, I think for me, man, it's the way our schedule's set up. I can't control that. So we're just going to play who's in front of us. But, working up and in terms of competition, does it give you a little more leeway with things? But, it's for me, I don't really focus on that as much. I'm just kind of worried about, hey, how can we beat this team that we're playing this week, and do everything that we can that week. And obviously, the bigger games are looming, but at the same time, you don't want to overlook anyone or get past anyone. So it's kind of just taking it 1 week at a time. But I do think that, the way that this season has set up has definitely, allowed us to kind of get more comfortable and get better every single week. And I think it has set up pretty well.
Yeah, Will, Oregon gets a lot of pressure on opponents so far this season. What do you like about your game against pressure, and where have you grown over your career facing a good pass rush?
Yeah, I think, my ability to kind of stand in there and make throws when I have guys in my face has gotten a lot better. And the only way to get better at that is doing it. And I've been in a lot of situations where I've had to, stand in there, take a hit and make a throw. And, I think, definitely they got some dudes over there. Are they going to make plays? Absolutely. Are they going to, try and present some tough looks for us in the front game? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm super, confident in my O-line. I think we got the best O-line in the country, and they're playing at a really, really high level right now. And I'm excited for them. I think they're going to take on that challenge. And I know that, but for me, I mean, it's just staying under pressure, staying calm under pressure, keeping my feet in the ground, not throwing off my back foot too much. And I've gotten better at it. I think I definitely still could be better. You're never going to be perfect, but
that's definitely something we're gonna need to be worried about this game. And they got some good guys up front, so we got to be worried about the twists and picking up the blitz and the stunts and whatnot. But man, I got all the faith in the world in my O-line.
We'll go right behind him to Spencer Holbrook.
Will, do you have a favorite throw to Emeka from Saturday, considering all three of the touchdowns had to be kind of perfect there for him?
That's tough. I'd say probably the one in the back left corner, the second one, the wheel route that I threw. I just felt like that was kind of a tight window throw, and we had worked that exact look. And I kind of missed the throw during the week, so it was really nice to get that opportunity back and get the chance to put it in there and put it on him. I think that was probably my favorite, but I mean, Mech was out there balling, man. I think, a lot of people, when they see what Jeremiah is able to do and they see what Q and Trey are able to do, Mech gets forgot about almost. And he reminded some people, of how good he is.
What did you throw on Saturday? Not that anybody doubted whether you could make those type window throws, but to be able to kind of rip them, show them off a little bit. What is that like watching those back on field for you?
It builds confidence for sure. It's like, even when the coverage is tight, it doesn't matter. I can put the ball there and those guys are going to make plays. And, at the end of the day, it just builds confidence looking back at those things. And it's fun to sit here in the team meeting on Sunday and watch those plays back and, understand that, the work that we've been putting in is paying off, and just got to continue to make plays and make them on a more consistent basis and, iron out the mistakes.
Well, you talked about playing in big games and big moments. How do you balance that any play can change, or any game can change on one play, with wanting to make that play versus not wanting to do too much?
That's good. That's a good question. Balancing that is huge, and you got to know when to, take your medicine, if you will, and just kind of take the check down and not force things. There's this balance between forcing and capitalizing, and you don't want to force something, try and make something happen, but you got to take advantage when and capitalize when those opportunities are there. And that's the game that you got to play. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And there's no doubt, man. So, that's the game that we're playing. And, we definitely want to go downhill and run a little bit. We want to take some shots, and that's every game. So, we got to know when to hit them and when to kind of take our medicine and check it down.
Do two more, Austin.
Well, when you're talking about Emeka and those catches, what's your favorite part of his game?
Man, I think his versatility is what makes him so good. Like Mech is just one of those guys that, and he'll never complain. Like if he doesn't score a touchdown and JJ and Carnell have 4, like he will not say a word. He'll be happy as ever for those guys. He goes out and blocks. I mean, you saw it in the Michigan State game. I mean, he was pancaking dudes in the secondary, like pancaking linebackers. Like he can do so much, and he can line up in the backfield. We can have him run the ball from the backfield. His versatility presents so many challenges for a defense, and you never know how he's going to hit you. If he's going to run inside, run outside. He runs unbelievable routes, got great hands. I mean, there's not many bad things that you can say about the kid.
So we'll wrap it up with Joey Coffman.
Will, you and Dylan are both, in terms of eligibility, super seniors. Where does that extra experience help you?
I think on situations where, you got to, like I just said, you got to know when to take your shots and when to not. And, I think I've done a pretty good job this year of keeping us on schedule and keeping us out of bad plays. I think there's been probably 1 or 2 plays a week that I'm like, man, you really can't make that mistake. You want it back. And obviously that's, something we just got to continue to grind on. And just something I can't do, turning the ball over obviously is a problem like that. But for the most part, it's just, decision-making for me. It's like keeping us on schedule, knowing when to take a shot, knowing when to check it down, knowing when to force a ball into a tight window or not. It's all those little things that go into it. It's not, it's kind of hard to zero in on one thing because, it's just, experience is experience. And, you can't really replicate doing things until you're out there actually doing it, and me and Dylan have definitely been, through a lot of football games. So, I think
that's something I try to lean on. Yeah.
What do you remember about the 22 game?
What do I remember about him?
From seeing him.
Yeah, no, he's a great player. I'm buddies with him. He's a good guy. Man, he's a good player, man. He can sling it. Ball comes out of his hand well. I think he played a good game that year against us, and at the end of the day, we just outlasted him. But yeah, he's a good player, man. He's a dude for sure. So I'm excited for the opportunity to go against him in this big matchup.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Go Bucks.
Folks, there you